Hi, I'm Stacey Long, the creator of Faith Works. And let me tell you, let me keep it real, it's taken me a while to start Faith Works and an even longer time to be transparent and to share my testimony. I know my testimony will bless you and inspire you, but before I change my mind, let's take a look at this.
Of the Faith Center, Henry Fernandez. He's known as the crazy faith preacher. You know, he has a lot of stories about faith, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of them.
Yes. I enjoy listening to them.
I'm sure they're so encouraging. Now, how has his faith stories and the messages on faith, how has that impacted your professional life?
Just being a member and a volunteer at the Faith Center for so many years, it impacted my life because you sit under that teaching and you hear his stories and you get motivated. When I came to the Faith Center, at the beginning of the year, they always have a fast. And I told you I was Catholic. I didn't really know about fasting.
Wow.
So during the fast, normally our annual fast, I guess, or the beginning of the year fast, we had to watch Christian television. I never did that before. So as I was watching Christian television, I began to critique it. And I was like, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And my friend who was with me at the time I don't know if he got aggravated about me talking through the show or he was being encouraging, whatever the case may be. He was like, why don't you change it?
Why don't you fix it?
You know, like, change it meaning what? Change the channel? I was like, what do you mean? I don't know anything about media. I can't do that. And he was just like, I don't know, that was the end of that. So when I went to become a member of the Faith Center, they had a list of areas you can volunteer. And it was like God highlighted media ministry because that was the only thing I saw on that paper. And at that moment, it was like God was saying, and I said to myself, this is my time. This is my opportunity to make that change.
Wow.
Glad as a Christian now, because this was in 2000, this is 2016 now.
Wow.
And it kept me going. Like every Sunday, at that time the Faith Center had 3 services, no lie, I was at every service.
Didn't miss a beat, huh?
I was like, I felt like I was gonna miss something if I left. You know how you watch the show?
Yes.
And you're like, if I go to the bathroom, I'll miss a piece. I was like, I can't miss it. Because I used to always think of it, the first service was Bishop kind of getting warmed up.
Oh,
and
boy.
I was like, oh God, I gotta stay for part 2. So I would stay for the second. You know! So I had to stay for the second service. And in that, I volunteered. I was on camera. I wanted to get that message out. And at that time, Bishop at the Faith Center, we had the world on the wall.
Yes, way back in the day.
Oh my God, I feel that even more now, even then, that his word was reach the world.
Yes.
You know, and through media, that's how you can reach the world so much, that World Wide Web, you know? So I was like, oh my God, this is my tool of evangelism. That's what I want to do.
Wow, and you know, you mentioned coming from a Catholic background, like all of this is new to you, but you just fell in love, you know, with everything and the volunteering, you were just so committed. And you know, I know for a lot of people, sometimes you're working in one field and you just mentioned that you saw some things when you were watching TV that you were kind of like, why are they doing this? Why is this happening? So how did it transpire for you to get to, you know, just from where you were to having that media love, and what did you do with that?
I remembered at the Faith Center, the young lady who trained us in media, she came from the Art Institute. I don't know if I should say that, but she came from the Art Institute. And she gave us such a worth of knowledge on media that I began to look back at the Art Institute because I knew she came from there, and I actually went to the Art Institute originally for fashion. So I went back and I'm looking in the computer because I wanted to find out, because I knew that they had media there and I wanted a degree. I was 38 years old and I was just tired of getting passed over for jobs that I knew I could do, but I just didn't have a piece of paper. I didn't have that degree. So I was like, you know what? I need a piece of paper. I know I can do this. And so I just started looking into it. And funny, lo and behold, the next day they called me and I was like, wait, I was just looking on the website.
I didn't mean to press send.
Exactly. So just in the conversation with the rep, I had mentioned that I had went to the Art Institute. I didn't finish. I left because life happens. And she was like, hold that thought. And she looked me up and I said, well, you know, I left owing. She was like, you know, I did. And so she was like, listen, I have good and bad news. And I was like, okay, well, give me the bad news first. She was like, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but we don't see a debt.
What?
I was like,
praise Jesus.
I was like, oh my God. She was like, we don't see any debt and we see all of your credits and we can transfer your credits over into video production.
So let's pause for a minute here. So you know that something is there for you in media. You go back now to try to go into school, and you're thinking, I'm gonna have to pay this debt because I left these people owing them some money. And she's looking at the computer and telling you that you can keep it moving because there's no debt. Wow, that is amazing.
So that was like, okay, God is telling me something. You know, it was like, God is telling me something. So she was like, when can you come to my office? I was like, tomorrow. So I went.
Right now, before the computer changes.
Exactly. And I was so excited. So I went and I was just like, okay, how am I going to do this? But you know what? Faith works. Faith works. Bishop talks about faith, about how he went to the grocery store not knowing how he was going to pay for that groceries. And I don't want to tear up, but I went to that school not knowing what I was going to do. All I knew was I wanted a degree and I was worthy of it. And so I went there, single mom. 2 children, 38 years old, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew that God was with me and God was telling me to do it. And I don't mean to cry.
No, it's
can't
okay because this is your testimony and this is how God has showed up for you.
Yes, and it was not easy. It was a lot of times it was hard, but oh my God, how God really moved. And it's so funny, the people along the way that you think are your supporters, how they were like, what are you doing? You have 2 kids. Are you crazy? You know? But I know a God. You know what I mean? And let me tell you, even not from the Faith Center, but other Christians from other churches, even pastors were like, are you sure?
Can't do it. Are
you sure you heard God?
Wow.
And I was like, you serious?
Right.
Like,
we serve the same God right now.
You know? I was like, yes, God. And I'm stubborn in that sense, I guess. And I was like, yeah, I know this is what God told me to do. And, you know, the system is there. I'm on housing. I get food stamps. It's there to help you to get it to another level.
Not to stay there. Absolutely.
And so, you know what? I'm going to use it for what it's meant for me to use it for. I am going to quit my job. And I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, but I know a God, and I know the word that says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their seed begging bread. And my children will be taken care of if I do what God told me to do. And that was my thing, and that's what I stood on. And I went, and you know, along the way, let me tell you, girl, I had situations where I didn't have a car, and we had to catch the bus. I had situations
with the 2 kids.
With my 2 children.
And I'm sure it rained sometimes.
Rained, walked. I had situations where I didn't have a job, and you know what I did? And it's funny, but I'm so thankful to God. I used to collect friends' clothes that they didn't want. Like, we would give to Goodwill, and I used to say, give it to me. And I would go to the swap shop with my 2 children and sit out there on Wednesdays, because you can go out there for free, and I would sell the clothes that people gave me. And with that money, I would pay my light bill, and I would pay my water bill, and I would put gas in my car when I had a car at that time. That is how I lived in the beginning. Then as time went, and through faith and prayer, I got a job at the school. I was a student worker, and that helped. But it was like $8 an hour, but it was income, and it was part-time, and it worked with my school schedule. It was a godsend. And I mean, even I talk about in another documentary that I created called Solo about the struggles of being a single parent. My daughter, you know, I got to a point where I couldn't take care of her anymore, my kids, and I let them go stay with their dad, and that's a whole nother story I don't want to get to.
That was
but
yes.
She wound up going into intensive care. She got really ill, and I had to sit there with her, and so it was a lot of struggles along the way, but I kept using the Word of God and the message that I heard at the Faith Center about faith, and that was what helped me. That was the rock for me through any storm that I went through going on a journey. It was the faith. So I'm almost positive my story inspired you, and trust me, I have a whole lot more. But leave a comment below and let me know how it's touched you, how it's inspired you, motivated you, given you hope. Whatever is done, even if you don't like it, let me know. And if you have a story or a testimony that you want to share, DM me or leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. All right? Thanks.